So we're looking at a work by Mark Malberg. Mark is a Petaluma artist. The work is called Alberio. And as you can see, he works with technology. These are solar paneled critters. The exhibition, Conversations and Sculptures. This is a perfect work to exemplify the theme of the show, because these creatures actually talk and interact with one another. So as you see them dancing and fluttering and tilting and whirling, it is literally a response of one piece to the next. At nighttime, they go to sleep, and when the sun comes out in the morning, they start their daily routine. And today's a gorgeous day, so they're very happy and very active today. So I wanted to tell you how I met Mark. I met Mark actually just under 10 years ago in Seattle, Washington, at the International Sculpture Center's annual, or I guess it's biannual, conference. And he happened to just be someone who saw me there as a curator and walked up and handed me a packet of his information, and I said thank you, and I filed it away. And now this is the moral of the story as artists. Sometimes when you put something out there, it may take 10 years, but I followed up, and here he is in the exhibition at Paradise Ridge Winery, and continuing to do great work. And so that's, never underestimate those packets that you put out there. One of the fun things I have as a curator is to offer opportunities to artists for their first outdoor installation. I've known Sabine's work for interior spaces, but this is one where she came, she accepted my offer. She came and we selected the site. And so this is an environmental piece. It is site specific because she worked specifically with this location. The orange lines are a webbing material that she uses. What's been fun to see is what the piece would do over a period of time. It started out a very bright kind of industrial orange, and with the year of exposure to the elements, it's softly faded into a much kinder orange, or a softer orange. One of the things I want to talk about is sculpture in the out of doors. This exhibition is about conversations in sculpture, and one of the conversations is about how the sculpture itself interacts with the natural environment and how the natural environment interacts with the sculpture. The exhibitions up here go for a year, so it goes through seasons, it goes through weather patterns. Light is such a big part of the sculptures because they develop shadows, or in the case of Greg's piece, you have the mottled light, which emphasizes the shadows and the peaks and the valleys of his works. Some other pieces really come to life when the light hits them, and they, as the sun travels over the sky during the day, the shadow follows and then almost goes away and then develops into the later afternoon sun. So I encourage people to always go see sculpture at different times of the day and in different weather, because sometimes that foggy, misty morning is one of the most beautiful times to see things, or that bright sunny day where the works really just kind of glow. There are 5 works on view by Linda Fleming. The white, yellow, gray, and teal colored piece is called Crackle. Linda Fleming's piece Planetesimal is the orange, gray, and golden color. And then there are 3 chairs, 2 titled Curve, one yellow, one red, and the third piece is called Scroll. Linda's work is about matter and space, shadow and light, drawing and structure. Intermixing colors are all components of her work and continuously interact with each other to destabilize what appears to be solid and identifiable. Colors combine in the eye, and the viewer begins to realize that the nature of reality depends on where you are standing. Walat Najib is a young artist from Kurdistan, and he was taking classes at the Academy of Arts in San Francisco and was referred to me by his sculpture professor, David Dustin, who was in the last exhibition up here titled 20 at 20. So again, taking the idea of the conversation, Walat proposed to do a show that would be his attempt of man trying to capture nature. So his concept was to build these steel boxes and then to place them out here in the natural environment. What happened with Walat, though, is that we now have a thing I call the Walat syndrome. He got very involved in making his boxes, all these different boxes, and getting them ready, and then didn't know how to place them. So the works themselves were made as parts, but they weren't put together as a whole. So he laid things out, and it made no sense to me. So I got his permission to rearrange with his professor. And what we created was what I think he was trying to do, which is the idea of man and his order. The urban environment that's on a grid, that's all organized and very symmetrical, versus nature's way of dealing with the world, which is not organized, or it's chaotic and it's wonderfully unorganized. So here you have a contrast between the man-made and man's efforts and nature, and how nature in the end is probably going to win. Do You See Me? I See You is by Jen Lee. Jen is an East Coast artist. We flew her out here to do the site-specific works that are mixed media. I'd like to read the artist statement because she explains her work very well. Jen says, I see the wedges as agents of change, a conflict. Conflict can be both divisive and unifying, and typically generates discourse. It is through this dialogue that one can hope to reach an understanding and resolution. For this to occur, the opposing sides must first be open to seeing the views of the other, to find a common ground, and to learn to embrace differences. The clusters of elements used to create Do You See Me? I See You represents the various conflicts people experience and carry with them. Each cluster is unique, but also similar, separate, and united by a commonality. And we want to let you know that no trees were harmed in the creating of this artwork. There are 3 works on display by J.P. Long. They are all part of his primary series. So primary 6, primary 7, and primary 8. The artist believes inherently that a conversation is occurring with the viewer, and in the case with sculpture, that with the environment as well. With sculpture, form and mass communicate something to a viewer. When a work towers over us, we feel dwarfed. When we must look down to see a smaller work, we have an Olympian perspective. Tensions especially evoke responses. Balance and movement affect us. Whether a sculpture is firmly rooted, seemingly unmovable, or precariously balanced, ready to topple over in a blink of an eye. There is the push and pull between what is there and what is not. There are the contrasts of delicate and solids, bright and dark, interior and exterior. Of course, a viewer also contributes to the conversation, bringing expectations and formative experiences. As an artist, Long is in dialogue with his materials and in some sense structures the conversation between his work and its viewers. Art is visual communication, and he strives to pose a lot of questions but offer very few answers. This side up, Handle with Care, created in 2012 by Terry Berlier, is made of reclaimed Douglas fir and piano strings. Terry is a professor at Stanford University. This side up, Handle with Care, transforms the skeleton of her home into a precisely half-size wood frame model that was one half right side up and the other half upside down. Virtually twisting the home into the middle to create a vortex, the walls are constructed of piano strings installed at 12-inch intervals. It can be played with a violin bow or plucked as a Aurelian harp. While the piano strings offer audible and interactive elements, they also provide structural support to the piece by drawing on the suspension bridge technologies. Her participatory sculpture invites viewers to understand that home is an activity, not a static object, something that must be made and remade through our own efforts. We're looking at Joey Enos. Joey is a recent graduate of the MFA program at Berkeley, and this piece is titled Converse, the Onus and Bonus. You're looking at what you think are pieces of wood and tires and some sort of a Mod Podge or construction. But what's really fun to know is that these whimsical pieces are all made of styrofoam, and that Joey makes the boards and makes the tires and makes the planks for the barrels. What was also a real challenge, though, was to take his rather casual materials or informal materials and find a way to give them longevity in the natural environment. So Joey had a bit of a learning curve, finding a coating that would suit his aesthetic, meet the requirements of being outdoors for a year, but also give him the bold and fun colors that he likes to use in his works. Joey shows in San Francisco and lives in the East Bay. Two Rings is by Dee Briggs. Dee Briggs is an artist living in Pennsylvania and teaches on the East Coast. This work is made of corten steel. It's 9 feet by 14 feet by 8 feet. The work represents two halves, a left and a right. It's two parts of a whole. Chirality, or handedness, is present in the organization and structure of all organic matter. from the micro scale of molecules to the macro scale of the human body. The conversation, constant between the left and right, through dominance, balance, precarity, and stability, allows the viewer some insight into the whole. Another comment I want to make about conversations and sculptures is, as one of my curatorial goals was to show 11 artists who had never before been seen at Paradise Ridge Winery. So Dee is a new artist to this area. We're looking at the work of Nathan Lynch. The piece is titled Dead Reckoning. All works are ceramics sitting on a redwood and steel base. I saw these works at Yerba Buena Center at the Bay Area Now show and was intrigued by them. And he's the first artist that I selected, and it was kind of the conversation that these three pieces have with one another that initiated the concept for conversations and sculptures. Nathan's piece is talking about the direct result of global climate change, and that there has been a notable rise in the level of the San Francisco Bay that forces us to consider land use, modes of transportation, and economic and natural systems. Rising in parallel, the Bay Area's technology industry has likewise generated dramatic and lasting shifts in our cultural and economic landscapes. This rising tide has not lifted all boats. However, and with our environment in flux, it is incumbent upon us to find our way through the myriad hidden hazards and potential disasters that lay ahead. So the work itself is about buoys out on the ocean. And we've landscaped it in a way that the pieces are rocking and they're not standing straight up and down. So environmentally, he wanted these to look like they were on a wave. And in this case, it's a wave of grass and land. So as the shoreline changes, how do we reorientate ourselves in this new surroundings? What markers do we look for as we navigate a way forward?